Okay, that means it's official. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Restaurants Care Resilience Fund September Zoom. I'm Alicia Harshfield, Executive Director of the California Restaurant Foundation, and Kiara Jimenez is also on this Zoom. She is our Program Coordinator for Restaurants Care. We're very excited to have you here today. We have a great topic, and we are recording this session, and we will be making it available to all of our Resilience Fund grant recipients from 2021 and 2022. So that's special this morning. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Please make sure you are muted. We do have the Q&A feature open, so drop some questions in if you would like. We'll have a moment at the end of the main presentation to take some additional questions as well. And you can use the reactions if you'd like. And this is our little New Yorkers cartoon for the month. A couple of cows work in a cafe, and they're saying thank you for not tipping. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, cow tipping, before, but I've got a friend from Minnesota, and I guess it was a thing. So anyway, I thought that was a funny cartoon to get us started. Just a quick reminder to let everyone know that restaurants are the center of our foundation's work. In everything we do, we're thinking about you and the people at the heart of restaurants. So whether that's through our high school culinary arts programs, our scholarships for college, our relief fund for food and beverage workers, as well as for restaurants, we're thinking of you. And that brings up a point I'd like to emphasize. We have a relief fund for your team members when they face an emergency or a crisis. And just this month, in fact, we awarded a grant to a server in Northern California named Jennifer, who works for a Resilience Fund grant recipient restaurant. And it was because of the Resilience Fund that the owner of the restaurant knew about this fund and referred her team member. Jennifer's father had passed away, so she was out of work for a number of weeks to be with him during his end of life and for his funeral. And so we were able to provide her with a grant to help bridge the gap of the lost wages she had and the additional expenses she took on due to her father's passing. So please, please, please don't forget about the Restaurants Care Relief Fund for your team. We've got all the information on the website, and you can refer people over to us. And Kiara takes a look at every single application that is submitted. So as you know, these monthly Zooms are powered by Wells Fargo. So special thanks to them for their second year of funding, which made these grants possible. All right, it is time for us to dive into our main topic, and we really do have a treat for you today. We're going to be talking about culinary and beverage trends, and we have an amazing expert with us, Cathy Nash Holley. She's the publisher and editor-in-chief at Flavor and the Menu magazine. She also has an annual conference that is all about flavor and trends, and it kind of brings together the world of food, beverage, and food manufacturers so that we can explore trends and just kind of continue to have a diverse and interesting food scene in California, of course, but across the country. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that Cathy can share hers, and we will dive into our topic.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me, for inviting me, Alicia, and I'm happy to be here. My name is Cathy Holley, and I'm going to share the start of my screen here. We good? Okay, yep. And I'll do a full screen slideshow. Okay, there we go. So my name is Cathy Holley. I am the, as Alicia mentioned, I am the publisher and editor-in-chief of Flavor and the Menu magazine, which has been around since the year 2000, actually. So we've been what our focus is to cover trends as they relate to flavor. We kind of look at trends through the lens of flavor. So, and really look at trends as business building opportunities and business differentiation or menu differentiation opportunities. So we like to showcase menu ideas and inspirations in a way that kind of present or spark ideas for you to incorporate onto your menus. And for this presentation, I wanted to walk through a set of really only 6 trends, but I want to contextualize these into categories, more broad-reaching categories that are influencing menus this year going into 23 and beyond. And for us at Flavor in the Menu, we really just look at, again, trends as business differentiator, business building ideas. I know that you all likely get a lot of trends reports coming across your desk. We do too. And I know our eyes roll when we see, oh, good, another list of 10 trends. But really what they are, they're basically sparks for ideas. And just, you don't have to look at it as a fad or get on the bandwagon, but it is just trends present themselves as an opportunity for us to look at the broader context with which they bring, or the immediate opportunities to differentiate your menu, signaturize your menu, or resonate with a up and coming demographic, which a lot of these trends speak to. So I wanted to start for this session. I will be talking through, as I mentioned, 6 trends and kind of contextualizing them into 3 main buckets of things that we're seeing driving food and beverage innovation in hospitality and restaurant and in the food service world. Let's kick off with this category called Revisiting Classics. And here we're covering a couple trends that we feel like fit into this broader bucket of culinary classics. And likely many of you viewing this will know a lot of these techniques. But we want to start off in something we're seeing some new innovation around is brown butter. And these are the kind of the bullet points driving this trend. A lot of these trends speak to a nostalgic cue or a cutting edge cue. And that works both ways for older consumers, for a Gen Xer like myself, or for younger consumers who think, brown butter, that sounds really intriguing. If you haven't had it yet, a few years ago, Red Velvet served this purpose of really sparking nostalgia among older consumers and intrigue among younger consumers. So if you can find those ingredients and those applications that really speak to nostalgia and intrigue, you're spanning those demographics, which is a really important menu development objective, certainly. Of course, culinary, professionals know the richness brown butter brings to a dish, the accessibility and ease with which to work with it, and how brown butter is one of those ingredients or one of those techniques that really can and result in a high impact opportunity to elevate at ordinary menu items. And we're seeing it here in a really interesting applications and a good partner on both the savory and the sweet side. I want to show you a few examples here. Bardea in Wilmington, Delaware. This is a wedge salad in so it's a poached cabbage poached in beer noisette, so a kind of almost a black butter treatment. And as an aside here, just talking about a wedge salad being cabbage itself is seeing a lot of play on menus. We're talking about whole cabbage, wedge cabbage, really interesting. And I think it brings, it's kind of fueled in part by that plant-based movement using whole ingredients in unique ways. And another thing here is look at the texture on this with the popped amaranth. That's really an interesting treatment. But I can see the appeal of incorporating a classic culinary treatment like brown butter to really upgrade a plant-based offering like a wedge salad, especially one with cabbage, which is really unique. Gus's Chop House is a newly opened steak shop in Brooklyn. And they have kind of a classic menu, this beef culotte with brown butter jus. So they have a lot of steaks and chops, and they're almost going back in time with that classic chop house look and feel. And again, any consumer would look at that and say, that really kind of resonates deeply with me on an emotional level, right? King and Duke in Atlanta, kind of a seafood forward concept. I really like this example because it's showing the potential for brown butter to stand in with a spicy pairing with a hot sauce. So Gulf shrimp with brown butter hot sauce is a really, really unique application for brown butter. And I think that is helping push the boundary lines of what brown butter can do on menus now. All right, moving on to Malbar Brasserie in Plymouth, Mass. This is one of 3 concepts owned by the same culinary team here. And they've got a salmon with vichyssoise, tomato salad, but look at their brown butter tomato crumbs. And again, remembering texture here, this is a brilliant, again, we're just talking about a crumble, which typically might feature butter, but when you're calling it out on the menu, all of a sudden that really elevates it, enriches the flavor profile. Brown butter tomato crumbs, or brown butter, any type of crumb on a bowl build or a protein or a topper, it's a really clever move. And again, that kind of has that rich nostalgia connection. Whiskey Cake is a more casual restaurant based in Texas. They've got a they were part of the Front Burner brands when they came out. But this is a really cool concept. And it's taking a cauliflower soup, again, looking at that ways to enrich plant forward builds with brown butter. So this is, typically you'd have a really dairy forward element of a cauliflower soup or any veg centric soup, but to kind of go one step further and make it a brown butter component that really is driving that is really compelling, I think, to consumers here. Moving on to another nostalgic flavor profile that again can be nostalgic and cutting edge, same, malted milk. And this is something that has deep roots. We all know it from Whoppers, right? Or other kind of the milk with the tang flavor, but there's that really roasted butterscotchy toffee type flavor with malted milk powder that becomes inherent in dishes that can be from sweet to savory. Most of the examples we're seeing here are sweet examples, and I'm curious to see where this might go, but we've definitely seen an uptick in the use of malted milk and malted milk powder, whatever product form, on menus. And here are some examples that are pretty interesting. These kind of came about, this has been developing, and this was Mr. Holmes, which is a Bay Area kind of iconic shop that unfortunately filed for bankruptcy. But before they did so, this was their malted milk chocolate crow muffin, which again, tapping into that profile that has an emotional connection with consumers. We're also seeing applications like malted milk sourdough. And this one here in the bottom corner, I really love this. It's kind of building on so many trends, right? You've got your banana peanut butter smoothie with a Dalgona coffee top, that creamy, frothy coffee top, and a malted milk skin crisp, which typically was something as a child, it's when you left your cereal too long, right? It's just that, and they're really capitalizing on something that most consumers know of, and they're kind of turning it, it's almost like using chicken skins, right? But they're using it in a textural forward way. And still kind of resonating with consumers on a really intriguing level with malted milk. Another example, Herb Saint in New Orleans. This is their malted milk chocolate mousse with a malted creme anglaise as well. So not stopping at malted milk per se, but malted dairy, malted creme anglaise is a really interesting treatment there. And again, takes like the lava cake with a cream coating to a whole new level. Fiorito in Miami, this is really interesting, and I think kind of carries so many trends in one dish, and I'm sure you all see this too. The malted milk cake, of course, but we've got sourdough ice cream, and we know sourdough is really making a big play right now, and to incorporate that into the ice cream blend is really unique. But there's also this brown butter crumble that we were talking about in a few slides ago. So it's really kind of a mature, nostalgic, example of what you could do with those malted, fermented flavors almost, right? Really unique. And this is a New York-based concept, Morgenstern's, and they have really brilliant flavor blends, kind of like the salt and straw of the West Coast. But this is their salted malted vanilla ice cream with crunchy malt ball centers. And that's, again, that's all nostalgia there, right? And it's almost like tapping onto the salted caramel trend, but tweaking it a little bit with that back note flavor of that malted brings to the table. So that's really, really an interesting application of malted. This also is a Denver concept, AOK malted donuts. Their entire base pastry for their donut menus are based on malted milk powder. And so these are just some of their examples. They've got a strawberry fritter and stewed strawberry jam. They've got a yuzu matcha flavor, mango cream and crispy rice and honey sesame. And again, the base for this is malted milk powder in all of their donut builds. Moving on to another concept of that is driving some big shifts. We're calling this post-pandemic shifts. And one of the big shifts is a change in breakfast. And trends resulting from this are yielding really interesting flavor profiles. So we're seeing a lot of development in Asian breakfast builds right now, with breakfast coming back. And there's been, of course, with the Asian influence reach on the menus, from your spicy gochujang's and srirachas to so many other ingredients that American consumers are really embracing. And this is really interesting for a West Coast restaurant concept, because a lot of these examples, you'll see I have some in here, but the Asian breakfast it's a big thing and I've been lucky enough to participate in a few Asian breakfast feasts, but this is something that most Americans are just becoming aware of. And it can be as really rich and fulfilling as American breakfast in many different flavor spikes and interesting fermentations and sweet and savory builds. So really unique, but again, speaking to the same core principles that breakfast delivers for most American consumers. We're seeing a lot of Japanese flavors and Vietnamese flavors leading the way. And also there's a healthy halo that comes with these. We know that a lot of these Japanese and Vietnamese, or really Asian breakfast builds, lean heavily in the healthy area, probably more so than traditional American breakfast. And also the popularity of bowl builds helps move this along. We're seeing a lot of rice puddings and things like that kind of drive some innovation. So here are a few examples. These are just a collage of Asian breakfast ideas that we're starting to show up, we're starting to see on more menus, that aren't necessarily always a breakfast application, but easily fit into breakfast. So these, from the savory porridges to the taiyaki fish, the little pressed fish waffles, to the crepes, the endless crepes, and the tamagoyaki, I think is how you say it. But the 1,000-layered, rolled egg dishes. So really interesting builds, and egg-friendly. So again, you've got a lot of those. You've got the pastries and the egg-friendly breakfast builds, and then your bowl builds too, which like the porridges and these really interesting, unique flavors with fermented spikes. Nobu, of course, this is their salmon egg donburi with ikara, scrambled eggs, and roasted salmon over rice. And that is a perfectly craveable breakfast bowl build. And I think a lot of iterations on a salmon rice bowl could easily have a soft cooked egg or soft scrambled egg atop, and work perfectly, fit really nicely into a breakfast menu. Single thread. This is their Japanese breakfast that has, of course, the cedar roasted salmon, the tamago, the yuzu koshu, donabe rice, all of these really unique salads. And between the miso and the tsukimono and any fruits and ferments, really intrigue American consumers in the right setting. And I think a special event like Single Thread does, of course, and like a lot of the concepts do around a Japanese breakfast or a special Asian breakfast, is really an opportunity. This is a great opportunity for brunch menus to make a dedicated destination meal. Same at Cassava in San Francisco. This is their Japanese breakfast served on their brunch menu. And again, it comes, the interactive component of it, the soft poached egg, cementing all of that, because take that out and you've got a really savory meal that could work on the lunch menu or in the evening menu. But all of the soups and the ferments and the spikes of really savory, umami rich flavor really speak to what this trend is all about. Another component of this trend is the coffee drink portion of it. Now, this is Cafe Da in Chicago. This is their egg custard coffee. And I use this example because it just shows it so clearly. But the egg custard has been something that's coming out of Vietnamese coffee builds. And it just adds an element of protein we know that consumers are looking for. It adds richness. It kind of plays into that frothy Dalgona trend that was going, or cheese capped coffees that are really trending right now. And then we have the Cafe in Kansas City with their ube colored latte with Vietnamese espresso, oat milk, and a condensed milk drizzle. So you can kind of see these builds are really, Gen Z friendly. They're colorful, and there's a richness to them and a diversity of flavor that's really pretty exciting for what's going on right now. Okay, moving on. Whoops, I think I missed one there. There we go. Yeah. The Breakfast Den in Philadelphia, and this is kind of a Vietnamese, they're calling themselves American Vietnamese comfort food. And you can kind of see this is like Asian breakfast light, if you will. There's the breakfast rice bowl there with 2 sunny side up eggs and egg rolls. And that's easy. That's easy to kind of build into an American breakfast offering. Really simple. All of these examples are pretty simple to kind of execute on an American breakfast concept. Another one, again, these bowl builds with Vietnamese pulled pork, and then the mini bacho cakes, which are kind of these are our pancakes, right? With bacon bits and chocolate chips, really interesting builds of, and just intriguing tweaks to a breakfast menu. And breakfast is where, and especially brunch is where consumers tend to invite new experiences, because breakfast menus, most consumers can just rattle them off off the top of their head. So these are really good examples and easy ways in to just making subtle tweaks to add intrigue and signaturization to your menu. Moving on to the next one. This is in New York, Beau Cafe, and they kind of are known for their bowl builds, their Asian focused bowl builds, but on their breakfast menu, or their brunch menu, I should say, they've got their eggs, potatoes, bacon, right? But they've got the green papaya salad. Again, easy, subtle shifts to give it a little unique spin. Their salmon bao benedict is another one that's really kind of interesting with the Vietnamese pickled ingredients. And the same with I have to keep moving my screen around so I can see what my writing is. The egg banh mi there. And again, turning a banh mi sandwich into a breakfast sandwich is an easy and brilliant build, because you've got, again, if you picture those spikes, I keep saying this, those spikes of fermented and pickled flavors that are really unique to a banh mi, work really well with so many applications right now. Jack Flaps in Cleveland is also doing a breakfast banh mi, and look at this build. That's like an American-sized breakfast banh mi right there, with Vietnamese sausage, kimchi, Vietnamese cinnamon, which is an interesting application, house-made hot sauce, and a fried egg. So again, that could really be on any day part menu, but to lock it into that breakfast space is kind of a smart move on their part. Elizabeth Street, also in New York. Oh, no, not New York, New Orleans and Austin. They've got two concepts, noodles and banh mi concept. And they're kind of tapping into that French Vietnamese merging of flavors. So they've got these really interesting breakfast builds, starting with their shaking steak, which is kind of a play on the shaking beef, and eggs with sunny side up, and spicy fish sauce caramel with Fresnos and sauteed spinach. again, just pulling in those high impact cues that consumers will just pique their interest at. Pork and shrimp crepe served with lettuce wraps, herbs, and wok cham. House-baked brioche French toast with blueberry Thai basil compote is another, easy upgrade to an American breakfast, and just making subtle tie-ins to an Asian spin in some way. All right, Indian cheeses. This is also something that we've seen that's starting to break out here. Indian mashups have been coming around on menus. We're calling them Indian mashups, and these are, it's really the first way in for a cuisine. It's really trying to take an ingredient and putting it into something that we know as menu developers, we know could sell. So this is an easy way to kind of dip your toes in the mashup mindset. Again, iteration of familiar format. We've got cheese. Who doesn't love cheese? And then there is this post-pandemic shift for experimentation, but within boundaries. We don't want to throw everything out the window. And we've seen a great interest in grilling cheeses and hot cheeses, using cheeses in different ways. And Indian cheeses have a lot to offer. There's examples of different varieties from Kalari, cows or goat's milk that's like mozzarella, to Koya, which is more like ricotta and used to make sweets. So there's a Gouda-like Kalimpong cheese, but we're starting to, the one that we're seeing the most play on is Amul cheese. And this is something that probably many of you have seen on menus. But these are some of the applications of these when we're talking about using these ingredients to like an Amul cheese to offer differentiation to your menu, hot or cold. Here are some examples of how Amul is being featured on menus right now at Rue in Chicago. This was a Amul cheese fondue they had on their menu. It comes with a walnut crumble. It's their baked mushroom and cheese fondue. But to use Amul cheese in a fondue is a really interesting idea. And Rue is a really trend forward Indian, kind of a modern Indian application. So this would be the place that you would be seeing really interesting applications with such products. Rahi in New York, unfortunately just closed. But I wanted to include these examples of the way they're using Amul cheese toast, of course, Dalhousie shepherd's pie with Amul cheese. And then you've got this really nice melting Amul cheese and bacon and egg sandwich with a spice-infused Bloody Mira drink on their brunch menu. So really interesting applications using Amul cheese that could just spark ideas with consumers. Chauhan Ale and Masala House is really it has been a very trend-setting concept. And I think when we talk about Asian mashup, she is doing it brilliantly. This is in Nashville, and I'm totally blanking on her name, her first name. Chauhan is her last name. So, yes, thank you. Yes. Okay, perfect. So this was her burger recently. And you've got, the burger patty itself has this blend of Indian spices into the patty, and it's got these buttermilk, onion straws, green chili bacon, and Amul cheese. And she's doing a really nice job at her restaurant in Nashville of incorporating Southern ingredients into modern Indian mashup builds. So she's a great example about how Indian mashup is going to continue to make plays on American menus. Gen Z influence is our final category here that we are looking at from a broader kind of bigger trend preference bucket. And younger consumers, we know, are really driving a lot of menu innovation. We talk to a lot of menu developers. They are all laser focused on what Gen Z wants. So these are ways to kind of capitalize onto their intrigue and interest in menu items. Ube should come as no surprise. This is purple. It just means purple to Gen Z. So ube has been, of course, it kind of got some pickup a few years back when it was included in the Blue Zones diet. And this is the diet of the folks, the communities around the world that live to be over 100. And they studied, it was a National Geographic project to start. They studied their diet and lifestyle habits and what got them there. And ube was one of those ingredients. So it started getting some play on the health forward side first. And now it's just all about color and a really subtle flavor. It doesn't have a strong flavor. So there's a lot of great menu development play potential here going on. Of course, the Instagrammability of ube or purple in general, or any color in general, is a big driving factor here. We're seeing this really catch fire beyond Filipino. This kind of came out of a Filipino pantry. And there are other Japanese purple potatoes, other kind of purple potatoes we can play, but ube in particular kind of is spawning from the Filipino cuisine. And again, in beverage, this is getting a lot of play in beverage. Few examples here. This is in New York, and they actually have an ube festival, which is kind of interesting. Purple Box Bakery, this is their ube dream cake, and look at the layers of this really interesting chiffon cake and house-made ube halaya pudding. And the ube halaya is the jam made from the ube, and then the ube white chocolate mousse and ube cake crumbs. So it's really a beautiful build. I mean, look at that. That is social media, and it's really kind of screaming Gen Z right there. Tula Jour is I think a Korean bakery, Korean Vietnamese bakery concept. But it's got about 70 locations in the US. And these are their ube lattes. And they've got, of course, the iced and the hot. And we know Gen Zers are all about their cold coffees. So to make an iced ube latte is a smart move. It definitely delivers the color, and I think probably some nutritional value. But again, the flavor is really mild with ube, so you really can make some strong plays and signaturize it, and it can go anywhere, sweet or savory. Cafe 86, a California-based concept with locations also in Las Vegas. But look at these ube desserts that they have, including the ube truffles, which has an ube cake mixed in with coconut cream cheese frosting, dipped in white chocolate and rolled in Oreo crumbs. So you've got the ube butter bars or the ube leche flan cake. So we're doing so many mashups here, really smart ways. And again, capitalizing on the eye appeal that ube brings to concepts. I mean, there's no turning away from a dessert with that color, right? This is my favorite ube example, and we actually had this, Alicia, at the Flavor Experience recently in San Diego. This is at White Rice in San Diego, and it's ube pandesal with ube butter. And so these are sold warm, hot, really, and they're pull apart little buns. They look like the little King's Hawaiian minis, right? They've got the ube halaya jam inside, and then that ube butter is the stuff of my dreams. It's got an ube honey butter, and it's just melts so beautifully. But again, really clever move to take a butter or a compound butter and infuse it with ube for primarily for color. Again, when I tasted that, you don't get a strong flavor of anything other than maybe a honey butter or a maple butter or something like that. But it's got an inherent sweetness. But again, as a menu developer, I think this is an easy flavor play. I wanted to include this one, even though Newland recently closed in DC, just to showcase the potential for ube in savory applications in this ube omelet. And that's one of those 1,000-layer kind of folded omelet builds. But again, the color's a little interesting in an egg dish, perhaps, but it's got a ramp emulsion, XO sauce, crispy rice fingerlings, and truffle seasoning. But again, the potential to incorporate ube into savory dishes, this is a good start, and seems like it could be an easy experimentation, certainly. All right, last up, this is another trend that seems to really have strong appeal with younger consumers. And we're talking about meat on sticks, simply put. This is the value to menu developers. It's a great cross-utilization opportunity. It's got global pathways all around. Every global cuisine has a meat on stick application. And again, low commitment, high reward. Those are easy menu wins if you can make them work on a snack menu or a shareable menu. And again, utilizing SKU optimization here at its best, of utilizing certain cuts of meat that can roll over onto a small skewer. And then that customizability from both operators and consumers is really big through dips or sizing or different meat sticks. And we're talking about meat sticks that range from skewers, traditional longer skewers, to toothpicks. So these really can go any way. And I think globally, these global meat on sticks have shown American, because we've got one meat on stick and it's a corn dog. They've shown us the potential of what meat on sticks can do. Llama Inn in New York. A few of these concepts were right out in New York. This is a chicken thigh anticuchos with salsa verde, and it's served with the purple potato chips. Do you see that? It's kind of tapping into the Peruvian purple potatoes, which have been trending as well. But it's a really smart idea. That's a really easily shareable. There's plenty of discussion. It invites customization in some way, both on the consumer side and on the operator side. Wela also at the Timeout Market in New York. I wanted to include this to show that you can do a meat on stick without meat. This is an Impossible skewer, but it is it's a grilled Impossible Foods meat wrapped sugarcane skewers. So basically, they are skewered on a sugarcane stick with a sweet chili glaze. And it's a smart move to include when you're thinking about meat on sticks, to think about your plant-based partners and clients too. Tori Tori in Orlando, I think this is really interesting. This is showing, we know shrimp skewers are not a new thing, but this is gochujang, which is also gochujang, different spelling, spicy shrimp skewers with a gochujang barbecue sauce. And then they've got the beef skewers with chimichurri sauce as well. So it's just, again, makes for a really easy menu to offer shareables, or even throw a pita on the side and sauces and a salad build, and that's a full meal. So there's big opportunities here in meats on sticks. And then here's a Gugu Room in New York, and this is their Rabada Kushiaka menu, and just the versatility of these between the ribeye to the pork belly, any number to the shrimp. So they've got a lot of variety on their meat. And again, these are the real small skewers. So those are just a couple bites, and a great shareable, a great starter, great side. So it's really, I could see meat on skewers becoming more of a thing for modern salad builds and modern bowl builds, because I think as consumers, there's something very fun. We all know that feeling of sliding those meatballs off a skewer or something, and just there's a satisfying interactivity that goes with meat on sticks that can definitely present some opportunities there. All right, that's a wrap. That's what we've got. So that's what we're watching for the next year. I'm happy to take any questions, and I know Alicia will be distributing this, and my contact information is right there, Cathy@getflavor.com, and that's our website too. So, look us up and keep in touch, and I will stop sharing here, Alicia, so you can jump back in.
Okay. I mean, I'm starving. I cannot believe how enticing all of those items looked, and how now I'm like, what do I even have in my refrigerator that can bring me some joy? Yes. So thank you. It's so, I mean, I understand that these trends and these profiles are so intricate and interesting, but I love what you said at the beginning, that they can inspire and spark ideas that could be adapted to almost any menu. So if you are a bakery, you have coffee drinks, you are already an Asian based restaurant, maybe there are ways to mash up and bring in different inspiration to your menu and keep your customers intrigued and interested in coming back. Do you see like when do we know that these trends have made it? When we see it on like a quick service menu, or is the influence coming from both directions?
Well, we watch from both directions. I think when it comes to a chain level, it's definitely getting a little more mainstream. And I tend to think that we have these different ways in with trends. And I think starting with as a mashup is a really brilliant move, is just doing a gentle metering out of and trial of what you think your customers will be game for. But yes, when you start seeing it on Starbucks, and Starbucks is a trendsetter, they definitely are driving a lot of innovation despite their size. So a lot of their coffee builds with, I would not be surprised to see an ube latte there anytime soon. In fact, they might be too late to the party. Everybody, so many other shops have beat them to it, but it's really, but yes, I would say that when it starts getting more mainstream, when multi-unit concepts can pull it off, then it's definitely doing your customers a service by introducing it to more customers that have the potential to come into your restaurant and either expect it or know what it is.
Right. And as you said earlier, it is an opportunity to differentiate your concept. And if you are uniquely serving a specific cultural cuisine, a chance to shine a light on it and highlight it and be the expert. So people come to you first for those flavors and experience it before they kind of are out in the world. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Really,
Well said.
really cool stuff. I mean, it's just amazing to me how celebrated these flavors can be in our community, and what makes, I think, our food scene, I mentioned it earlier, in California and in so many parts of the country, so unique and interesting, is that we have this infusion of different cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Alicia. And California is a go-to for sure for even when I live in Portland, Maine. And so when I'm looking at trends, I tend to go right into what's new in LA, in LA County. And then when it reaches out to Orange County and kind of the suburb, or not suburbs, but the broader areas, you really can see where it can appeal to more mainstream consumers. But definitely so many trends get their start in your state. So which is a great resource for all food and beverage trends.
Fantastic. Well, you've done a great job sharing all these amazing trends with us and talking us through it and making us hungry. And it's really exciting to see. And thank you for your time and sharing these insights with us. We'll be sharing this video with all of our Resilience Fund restaurants, and in fact, I think we're going to share them with our ProStart teachers too, because it's such interesting trends. But thank you for doing that and spending the morning with us. So I want to let everybody know that next month's topic is Ask an Expert. We're going to have restaurant operators covering operations, technology, marketing, so that you can ask questions, hear from them as to what they're doing within their concepts, and then apply those tactics and tips and suggestions to your business as well. That'll be on October 18th at 9:30. We'll send you reminders as well. And speaking of reminders, don't forget to follow us. We've got our Restaurants Care Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'd say we're probably most active on Instagram, and you never know, we may visit your restaurant and post about you. So thanks so much for joining us. If you have any questions, you can find us at resilience@restaurantscare.org. Don't forget about the Restaurants Care Relief Fund for your employees. It's serious, it's important, it's there, and we want you to make use of it and refer your team members. See you at our next Zoom. Thank you again, Cathy. Thank you everyone for joining us, and have a fantastic rest of the week. Take care.
Thank you, Alicia.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.